Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's so good to see you. I was sitting here for a second just talking with my brother, and I went to type a message into the chat box, and it's like all of you showed up at the same time. I'm thinking, wow, they're earlier than me, right? I'm late to my own thing and you guys are on time. It's so good to see you. Hope you're doing okay. Hope you're having a good Friday so far. Let me go ahead and fix Instagram. It's screaming at me again. I don't know what the issue is. Let me fix this, guys, and then we can jump in. You know, we've talked about betrayal quite a few times live. So when this stream goes off, give me 1 second. I just got to pull my YouTube stuff together to put on Instagram. But in the previous conversations that we have had on, here we go, that we have had on betrayal, they've all kind of captured specific angles of it. So in tonight's live chat, I want to highlight how betrayal starts, how it impacts you, and what keeps it going. You know, like I'm sure you've had experience with several people in your life that has betrayed you. It's probably not just mom. It's probably not just dad. It's probably not just your siblings, but it is a variety of people in your world that has betrayed you. There's interestingly some research on this topic, primarily betrayal trauma, that really zones in on who the betrayer is. And so tell me how you feel about this, okay, guys? Some betrayers actually believe that they are the victim. Can you believe that? I was looking at some of the research last night, and some of the research was highlighting that the betrayer actually believes that they are the victim of betrayal. So while you're sitting there feeling betrayed, and while you're sitting, maybe with this person or around this person, or you're with yourself, your own thoughts and emotions, while you are trying to figure out what's happening to you, it might be happening in the mind of the betrayer. So in other words, the betrayal and kind of feeling like a victim may actually be in the mind of the betrayer. That is so angry. That is so angering, right? Okay, let me type a message to Instagram. Hi, friends. Oh, there we go. Bear with me, guys, okay? If you want, I'm going to say, if you want a community experience, join me on my channel. Okay, there we go. I'm all done. Now I can pay 100% attention to you guys. Okay. So that research was kind of interesting. And I'm thinking that is so, what's the word? Maybe I'll use the word I used earlier. It is angering, right? Because, you know, you're the one who's feeling hurt. You're the one who's feeling betrayed. And yet they're sitting and thinking they have been betrayed. It shouldn't be like that, right? I'll give you an example of this before I go on. I had a client like this 2 years ago. Thankfully, she's out of the relationship, but she had married a guy who she thought was kind and sweet and caring and understanding. She was so happy. She brought him to therapy. You know, we had a couple of sessions with him. He just seemed like a really good guy all around. Well, he has an affair. And he keeps the affair a secret for 2.5 years. So part of that, you know, the first year they were dating, second year they were engaged, and he kept the outside relationship a secret from her. She found out. She addressed him about it. Of course, they had an argument. Then they talked it through. Then they asked to come see me for therapy. I referred them to a marital therapist, more like a relationship therapist, if you will. And they were able to do a couple of sessions with that therapist. They came back to me and talked to me about what wasn't working and what was working. But here's what's scary. I remember her telling me by text, Miss Tamara, I'm going to be late. So he's going to come sit and talk with you if that's okay. And then we can jump in as soon as I get there. I said, yep, sounds like a plan to me. We can do that. I'm talking to him, right? And I'm asking him, how does he feel knowing that he has betrayed her feelings, her thoughts, and her desire for the relationship. And he said, oh no, I didn't betray her. He says to me, she betrayed me. And I said, well, that's not my understanding of the situation. Can you help me understand why you feel like the betrayed? Well, she's the reason I had the affair. I just knew she was going to cheat on me at some point in this relationship, so I figured I would get a head start. And my chin was on the ground, guys. I couldn't believe what he was saying to me, and I really couldn't believe that he saw himself as a victim. Then he went on this whole tangent, okay, about she doesn't clean enough, and she has really high expectations, and she doesn't seem to get along with my family. That's not going to work. How can I marry someone who doesn't like my family? And then it went to she talks to me like I'm small, and she makes more money than me. And these were all of the fickle, shallow reasons as to why he had an affair. And so the way he was kind of seeing that dynamic is she has these overly high expectations, and she has all of these things that she wants me to do or to represent, and yet I am not able to provide that. So I'm going to go out and have an affair, and then once I get caught, I'm going to tell her, you're the reason why, because you betrayed me first. And so that was his twisted up, skewed way of thinking about their dynamic. And so when I read the research this past week about betrayal trauma, and it highlighted that sometimes the betrayer feels that they are the victim, that is an ugly reality. In a sense, it could sound like a narcissist, right? It can kind of sound like I'm entitled to do whatever the heck I want to do, and you are going to be okay with it because I feel like you have betrayed special me. It can kind of come across that way, right? There's something going on there. So in a sense, he kind of premeditated what he was going to do because he felt like she had all these expectations for him and all these desires and wants, and he couldn't meet the expectation, and she talks down to him, and the list goes on. And to him, again, he was the first person in the relationship to be betrayed, not her. So research backs that up. Now, research also backs up the fact that betrayal is oftentimes premeditated. It's premeditated. It's premeditated malice and disregard for moral principles. So I'm going to put that in the chat box for you guys. Okay. So betrayal is identified to be premeditated malice and disregard for moral principles. Really what that means in broken down, shredded up language is you have thought about betraying me before the fact. You have thought about betraying me and hurting me before I even knew anything about it. You decided to come up with this idea. You knew how you were going to execute it. You knew how you were going to deal with the situation, and you knew how things were going to end, especially if you get caught or especially if you're called out, right? Think about that parent who's betrayed you, perhaps. Maybe it's the parent who got into a relationship after your mom and dad divorced. This is an example, but this may be the mother who, divorced your father, didn't want anything to do with your dad. There was a lot of custody battles and a lot of, issues with the divorce. She finally found a man that she wants to be with, and now he's your stepfather, and she does any and everything that he wants her to do because she's blind and she really loves him and wants to be a part of his life. So where does that leave you as the stepchild? Sometimes, especially the kids that I counsel, sometimes on the outskirts of the family. So you end up way over there because mom is not going to stand up for you or fight for you or be there for you because you are the other man's child. And now she's with a new man and you're interfering with that relationship. So you're going to be pushed to the outskirts of the family, or you're going to be pushed into your father's world because to mom, she still wants her life. And you're a big, big burden to it, right? So premeditating betrayal could be, in this scenario, I'm going to get a divorce. I know my daughter really loves her father. I'm going to not put up a fight when it comes to custody. I'm going to give him whatever rights to my daughter that he wants. I'm going to send my daughter over there. I'm going to encourage them to get her enrolled in a school that's where her dad is, so that I have kind of like visitation and dad has the full parental responsibility, so that I can go ahead and get with this man and party it up and live my life and be happy. And that is a premeditated betrayal. And I had this case 4 years ago. It was horrendous, horrendous. And she didn't think anybody was on to her. Until I said, there's a reason for your behavior. And she says to me, she says, no, it's really not. I said, yes, it really is. Because you are not a stupid lady. You understand that if you have your child transition to your ex-husband's school district, that she's going to be over there half the time, right? She's going to be over there for the majority of the time because that's his school district. So you're going to have little custody of her, which means you're going to have like visitation. So you're not going to see her that much, which means it leaves you free to your new boyfriend. At the time, it was her boyfriend. And so, she just kind of sat there like a deer caught in headlights. But the ugly piece of this is that it was premeditated. There was malice, right? There was malice because her marriage broke apart. She didn't really care for her daughter. I hate to say that, but she was a very self-centered, ego-driven kind of an individual. She needed everything just about in her life to make her feel good about herself. And so her daughter wasn't one of them. Her daughter had a autism spectrum disorder. Daughter had ADHD. There was a time she tried to kill herself. She was suicidal. So mom, premeditated that she was going to abandon her daughter in a sense. I'm going to throw over there with her dad, so I can go over here and live it up and be happy with this man and maybe create a new family. And that was kind of her awful, awful disposition. And so this was a premeditated kind of a malice. It was a disregard for moral principles. That is your child. But it didn't click. She doesn't really care. So she was what we call ego driven, She had to do everything and anything in her possible to make her feel good on the inside. Was she a narcissist? Most likely, more of a covert narcissist. She kind of hid under the radar. She was that kind of a person who kind of betrays everybody and their view of reality, because she would volunteer and she would donate and she would go to church every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. She would volunteer for the PTA meetings at the school. The list goes on. And she just cloaked herself so much. She felt she could get away with a betrayal. That's kind of the way that I summarize that whole situation. This is a premeditated betrayal. Now, let me break down for you, before I go to the chat box, let me break down for you what betrayal is. There's always a different definition of betrayal, okay? But this is a definition that I thought was succinct. It was sufficient, and it kind of pulled in all of the elements of betrayal, okay, without giving us this big paragraph of a definition of betrayal. So I'm going to put the article in the description box so that you can have this definition in the article that it came from. But here's what betrayal is. Betrayal is a sense of being harmed, okay, by the intentional acts or omissions of a trusted person. So betrayal is a sense of being harmed by the intentional acts, right, or omissions of a trusted person. Betrayal. So let's break that down just a little bit. There's harmful intention. We just talked about premeditation, right? It all goes together. Betrayal is harmful intention. So you intend to do what you know you shouldn't be doing. You've already thought about it. You've already decided that you were going to do it. You already concluded what everything is going to cost you, right? You've already kind of explored why you want to do what you want to do. So there's been a lot of premeditation before a betrayal. Also, omissions. So meaning that there's this kind of, I'm trying to find the right word to explain it to you guys. It's kind of like there's these elements to a relationship that protects you from being betrayed, right? If we remove those elements, that is betrayal, right? So trust, we remove that element, betrayal. clear understanding and communication. We remove that element, right? That's an omission. Then that's another betrayal, right? So this definition says that this is really a sense of being harmed by omissions of a trusted person, right? I'm taking this away from the relationship, and therefore you're not going to feel safe in this relationship, because at the foundation of betrayal is a loss of safety, a loss of security, and a loss of trust. That is really at the core of betrayal. There's also something known as catastrophic betrayal. So I'm going to put that in here. Catastrophic, come on, betrayal. What is catastrophic betrayal? It's a violation of trust, right? By the person, however, this is what's interesting, by the person that you depend on. It's a violation of trust by the person that you depend on. You depend on them for finances. You depend on them because you have a mental health or medical disability. You depend on them because you can't do life without them. It's hard, right? So this could be an adult child with their parent. I need you to help me pay the mortgage. I need you to help me pay the rent. I need you to take my daughter to school every day because I have to get to work at 5 a.m., right? So there's some kind of dependency. And so that's why it's called a catastrophic betrayal, meaning that the betrayal is going to result in a really big hit to you and the relationship. So it's a violation of trust by a person that you depend on, a parent, for example. My Lord, I've seen so many kids over my entire 16 years of being a therapist, and I have seen kids that I've cried with, I've hugged, I've soothed, I've calmed down, I've talked to and counseled and prayed with and prayed for. And it's unbelievable the catastrophic betrayal that kids can feel when they are completely violated by the inappropriate behaviors of a parent. That could be child abuse, right? So there's all kind of, there's forms of child abuse. We're not going to go through all of them, but the most common would be physical, psychological, and emotional abuse, right? Then there's sexual abuse on top of that. There's rape and molestation. There's emotional and sexual incest, right? All of those things violates the trust that a child has in their parent. Then we can also go to the more milder forms of a lack of trust in a parent, right? And that could be, mom divorced dad. Now she's with another man and she doesn't care anything about me, or dad has decided to marry this girl that he only knew for 6 months and it's changed his personality, or it could be, I'm an adult child and I want a relationship with my family and they've come against me. They've turned their backs on me. They think they're better than me. They think they're smarter than me, and they know nothing about me. That is betrayal in and of itself, right? So it's catastrophic when you depend on that person. It's a demolished sense of safety that happens to you, a demolished sense of safety. I'm going to put that in the comment section. So demolished sense of safety is the result of catastrophic betrayal. I do this. Tell me if you guys appreciate this or not, because it could be a distraction or it could be helpful. I like to put the bigger pieces of what I'm saying in the chat box so that hopefully later, if you can get to the chat after the stream goes off, you can look at the terms and you can also have them to look them up and learn a little bit more about them. So that's why I'm starting to put those definitions in the description box. Okay, guys? Catastrophic betrayal. Now, there's also this kind of tricky area of psychology where there's a betrayal and then there's evil. And so what do you call evil? Is the evil person betraying you, or is betrayal itself evil? I think it could be both. But this is a philosophical an existential argument that has continued to go on for many decades, that if we involve the element of evil, excuse me, right? So we have betrayal. If we involve the element of evil, what does that actually mean? How should we define that? Because betrayal really is an evil thing. You know, I was going to say in my opinion, but it's really not just my opinion. It's more so my clinical experience and also some of the research on this area. But betrayal can be very evil because what it's doing is it's kind of like snatching the rug out from under you when you least expect it. Maybe you really and honestly do believe that that person is never going to betray you. And maybe the moments that you have spent with them has kind of, sorry guys, I'm sorry, I thought I heard my mom up there. My mom's upstairs. You guys are probably like, what's wrong with her? My mom's still in recovery. Like, I think she's going to be in recovery for quite a while from her stroke. And so that she had back in February. So she's up there watching Wheel of Fortune with my brother. And I thought she was like screaming for me or him to help her with something. Okay, let's get back on track. Okay, so I'm sorry about that, guys. So betrayal and evil, right? So what was I saying about that? She totally threw me off. Betrayal and evil are two concepts that to me are married, but it's like, the field can't really come together on this theory, right? Even though it goes neck and neck, to me, evil is, like I said earlier, it's like snatching the rug out from under you. And here you are believing that you're not going to be betrayed by this person. And maybe in the moment when you're with them, right? Maybe you're eating dinner with them. If it's your husband or your wife, maybe you're sitting in bed with them before you guys go to sleep and you're having a conversation, right? An intimate conversation between the two of you. Maybe it's grandma, maybe you went to her house and sat on her couch and ate her delicious pancakes and you guys talked and you feel like you have an understanding between the two of you, right? And you believe in all of your heart, right, that she would never betray you. He would never betray you. Mom would never betray you. Dad, my husband, my wife, my grandmother would never betray me, my siblings. But once they do, and the rug is snatched out from under you, now you've got to kind of reorganize this in your mind, right? You've got to reorganize this and try to figure out rationally and logically why. And some people go from why to where, when, how, right? Sometimes when I have clients who are in my office, they come and see me sometimes for the first time or maybe 2 or 3 sessions after the first one. And now they're ready to really open up because they need some help. They are desperate for help. So sometimes if I'm dealing with a case involving betrayal, my client will say, why would he do this? How did he do this for so long? Where did he even go? And you really do get therapists. They get that, why, how, where, and when kind of thing, because the person has absolutely no awareness of how the betrayal started they have no awareness of the premeditated nature of betrayal. It is simply an experience that they are having, and to them their world is shattered because they don't understand it. They don't know how, they don't know why, they don't know where, and a lot of times they don't know when. Okay, so they're coming at this. The person who is being betrayed is coming at this, the experience or the situation, from a place of total confusion and hurt and just pain, right? And so sometimes, depending on the intensity of the betrayal, it can really shatter your heart, right? Because in a sense, that evil darkness called betrayal that hits you really makes you a defenseless, vulnerable individual because you never saw it coming. You couldn't defend against it. You couldn't have anything in response to it. You couldn't even try to change it, right? Because it hits you and it's hit you like a ton of bricks. And now you've got to try to figure out what in the heck happened here, right? So it really creates, I'll put it this way, it really creates this defenseless vulnerability of the victim. I'm going to put that in the description box, okay? So betrayal creates a defenseless vulnerability of the victim. Make sense, guys? A defenseless vulnerability of the victim. You're defenseless. You never saw it coming, didn't think it would ever happen, didn't have any clues. Boom, hits you in the face. It's made you a defenseless. It is made or caused, I'll put it this way, it has caused defenseless vulnerability within the victim, within you. One last thing before I go to the chat box. People who betray, primarily family members, or somebody that you've been in a long-term relationship with, or maybe your spouse, maybe your marriage partner, right? There's this rationalization and self-justification, I'll use that word, that tends to accompany the acknowledgement that you have betrayed me, right? So let me break that down. So let's say your dad has betrayed your family. He's cold, he's callous, he's unemotional, he could care less about you, okay? He has betrayed your family, had an affair, moved money around, made it to where mom couldn't have access to the money to do the things she needed to do, right? So your life has changed. You may go to your dad one day and say, Dad, can you tell me why you had an affair on mom? What was wrong? Like you ruined our entire family. And your dad may say, I had reason. I had my reasons. And you may say, do you care to share those reasons, right? And dad may say, well, your mom was A, B, and C, and you kids weren't A, B, and C, and I was unhappy all the time. And, nobody deserves to be in a depressive kind of an environment, a marriage, my marriage should have been happier. My relationship with you kids should have been better. I was an unhappy person and I didn't know how to get out, and then blah, 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 right? Self-justification. And dad is rationalizing his behavior, his motive, his intention, his thoughts and feelings. And it can cloud your world so much that you may say, you know what, Dad, I totally understand. It's kind of a sneaky thing that betrayers do. They self-justify and then they rationalize. They actually play the victim. They believe they are the victim. And then, sorry, you guys are hurt, right? There's this kind of what we call moral disengagement. There's this moral disengagement that happens when a betrayal is happening. Moral disengagement is a term that really describes an individual who engages in betrayal and there's absolutely no guilt, right? Like you're engaged morally when you're donating, when you're volunteering, when you're being your best self. I am morally engaging with you now because I feel that you people on YouTube, my wonderful friends on my channel, and whoever else wants to tune in, you need this information and you shouldn't have to always pay a therapist. I hate to say it because we do deserve to be paid. We go through so much. We support a lot. We love a lot. The list goes on. Those of us who are good therapists, but what if you can't afford it, right? What if you need just this free public education that is reliable and legitimate, and then you build a bond with the person who's giving you that knowledge, and you become those of you who are on my channel, which we have talked and engaged, and the list goes on. And I love my community. That's a wonderful, beautiful thing. So I am morally engaging right now and saying, you know what? I love you guys. You guys are the best. I'm going to give you exactly what I think you need to know. And it is free. Okay. So that is moral engagement. But when you morally disengage, you're stepping out of that. Now you're doing something that's going to betray the people who are relying upon you. And so when a betrayal happens, that is moral disengagement. It demolishes your sense of safety, completely demolishes your sense of safety. Moral disengagement. All right, guys, I'm going to go to the chat box and welcome you. excuse me, I'm going to go to the chat box. We're going to talk about the factors that motivates betrayal. You're going to want to know that. And then I'm going to give you other factors that may be helpful. And then I'm going to give you some information on the impact of betrayal on you. Excuse me, guys. Oh, Bree, that's so sweet of you. Bree 420, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Bree says, and we can't thank you enough for all of this knowledge. No, you can't. And I don't need that. So let me put this out here the right way. I am grateful. You guys are wonderful. I don't look for accolades, payments, money, gifts at all. And you guys just continue to give. Does that make sense without sounding like I'm saying I don't need you? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying in a humble sense is you freely give to me, and I'm not asking, I'm not looking, and you guys just bless me every single time. So thank you so much for being that loving, humbling kind of community. Your love and appreciation for this channel and the knowledge on the channel and just your memberships and your giving is a beautiful show of your support. So again, I'm so humbled and grateful for all of your support. We continue to make milestones. I continue to get emails from YouTube telling me you guys have met this milestone. You guys have become the #1 channel on YouTube on the weekends, you know? So you guys are wonderful and just beautiful people. So thank you so much for being a great support, not only to me, but to everybody else on the channel. So Bree, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Jessica J, thank you so much. I do see you. Bree, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, that's so sweet. Ellie Wynn, thank you so much. Jessica J, I saw you. I saw you in here and I didn't want to forget you. Here you are. Jessica J, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate you. Amy 999, hello and welcome. It's good to have you back tonight. And thank you so much for the love. I really appreciate you. I do. Thank you so much. Fairy Girl, I can't forget you. Hello and welcome. It's so good to see you in tonight's live chat. All right, let's keep moving, guys. Let me go back to the beginning so that I can see who's here. I get so lost when I don't. Axe to Edge, hello, my friend. It's good to see you back in tonight's live chat. Into another live chat is what I meant to say. Keith B. and Pulsar, give it a think. Adams, I'm going to come back to your question. Mark Lee, Crystal Seeker 71. Vox, did I say that right or wrong? Voasucks? I messed it up. I know I did. It feels wrong. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Correct me, okay? A and B, all of you. It's so... Wrong button. A and B. It's good to see all of you. So glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Vosox, I'm going to say that until you correct me, says, always follow your intuition, your gut intuition. It's many miles ahead of your mind. Yes, it is. Sometimes it is. And you really do have to go with your intuition. My late grandmother used to say to us all the time, your intuition is a God-given compass. Your intuition is a God-given compass. And I remember thinking, I can kind of go with that, you know? And the older I got, I recognized that, whoa, this is telling me something and I better listen. I better listen. I'm not so intelligent that I can't listen to something that may be millions and millions of miles ahead of me. You know what I mean? Adams Atom says, can you relate this to psychopaths and evilness? 100%. Yes. You can, most definitely. Again, like I said earlier, I think evil is a concept that psychologists would rather not discuss because there's no scientific element to explain evil. You know, it's like this. It's like this experience that you can have, but there's no concrete proof that the experience you've had is evil. You know what I mean? All you can really rely on is what your inner man is telling you. And your inner man may be telling you, maybe God is telling you as well, watch out for that. That's not okay. You know what I mean? But I do think it can go along 100%. Yeah. Lisa Cobb, you're welcome. And Sylvie, hello and welcome to the both of you. It's good to see you. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. You're welcome, Jessica J. You're welcome. Axe to Edge says, entire family betrayed and continue to do so. Guess it's like breathing to them. Well, it could be. Now, let me just say, Axe to Edge, betrayal can be generational. Research has suggested, when it comes to relationship problems and attachment and emotional attachment, a family can perpetuate betrayal down the generation, the generational line, and it really just is almost like learned behavior. It's modeled behavior. It's behavior that's the result of unhealed trauma. The list just continues to go on. If you look at the research on family trauma, you will find, and maybe I'll post something in the description box for you later, you can read in the article where it shows that several generations within a family has engaged in betrayal in some form or fashion. And some of that is learning that behavior from adults in the family. Some of that is, just having a personality disorder like narcissism. Some of that is also trauma and feeling ways that you shouldn't emotionally feel, which causes you to act out against another family member. There's a lot of research that supports betrayal can happen through many generations. It's sad, right? Phil Bradley, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Space Monk Music, hello and welcome, my friend. It's good to see you. Space Monk Music says, do betrayers project their betrayal onto their victim to soothe their unconscious against, or angst? I'm sorry, I'm reading that wrong. Let me start that over. So do betrayers project their betrayal onto their victim to soothe their unconscious angst for harming another? Sometimes. That's a really nice way to put that. That's a really nice way to put that. Yes, sometimes they do. Right? We call that projective identification. I'll put in the chat box. Projective identification. Or we can also use Sigmund Freud's term, projection. They basically mean the same thing. I'll link that video that I did in the past on projective identification to this live chat once we sign off. All right, let's keep moving. Honest Living Journey. Hello and welcome, my friend. It's good to see you. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. You know who you sound like. Good evening, cuteness. That's so sweet. My cousin, who is more like my aunt because of her age, but she calls me the same thing. She would be shocked to see that. That's her name for me every time she sees me. Thank you for that. That's so kind. All right, let's keep moving. Yamila, hello and welcome to the channel. It's so good to have you. Hope this live chat will be helpful for you. Oh, nice. Impulsor. Love that. My mom does it all the time. Yeah. The only thing with my mom when it comes to crocheting is she gets fed up with it and throws it down. She's like, I'm done. She's, knitting blankets and hats and everything. And then she tries to increase her knowledge. And next thing I know, I see one, I don't even know what you call them. What do you call them? Darn, I forgot what the word is. You know what I mean, Ann Paulser. Those things, those knitting utensils. That's what I'm going to call them. Okay. One is over there and one is over there because she's given up. MS says, excellent topic. It's like opposite day when the person doing the betrayal feels wronged. It's frustrating, yet I see how it's generational. Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. I appreciate that compliment also. Thank you. And yes, you're 100% correct. 100% correct. Jessica J says, I've been betrayed by people I never would have thought have. I literally went into shock. Oh, I don't blame you. I don't blame you, Jessica J. I would be shocked too. Because again, betrayal is a premeditated malice. It's a premeditated betrayal. So if you know you're going to do this to me, why have anything to do with me then? what's the word? It's horrendous. That's the word I'm looking for. It's just awful, you know? Mark Leaf says he has a question. I can say that through all of the narcissist attacks that I went through, I didn't manage to do everyone around me, right? I did try, but I was a real mess. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't know what to give you in response to that, other than I know what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I can, as we go along, you can gain something from what I'm going to be saying that can relate to you. I wish I had more to give you on that one, Mark Lee, but I totally get you. Mystery Lip says, I haven't seen you in a while. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. He says, my ex said that. I don't remember what I said at the time. I'm so sorry. Oh, he goes on to say that's a good reason to cheat, or at least end it. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. Give it a think. Says, I've known people like that, dude. Yep. And we're referring to, at the beginning, I talked about my client and her soon-to-be husband, which she ended up not getting married to in the long run because he was a mess. And Pulsar says, yes, there have been times when I sensed people were going to betray me. As a highly sensitive person, I need to learn to trust my intuition. Absolutely. Yes. Agree. All right, let's keep moving, guys. Christina Smith, hello and welcome. It's always good to see you in the chat box. Lori, good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Lori says betrayal and premeditation is the huge red flag. Take notice and run. Absolutely. The title of this video before we signed on tonight, and I did change it just for CEO purposes. So, SEO purposes. I'm sorry. SEO purposes. So what that means is, in order for YouTube to find my videos, or my live chats, you have to title it in a way that people will grab onto it and say, you know what, this is exactly what I want to hear tonight. But the original title of the video was, what happens when fight or flight is triggered by betrayal? And I, of course, changed it. But here's one of the important pieces of the puzzle here. Betrayal usually triggers fight or flight mode. Fight or flight mode, and I don't know, I think I may have explained this to you guys before, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of a visual. Then I'll continue just briefly with the comments, and then we'll go ahead and get back into the content. But let me show you something here. Hold on a second. Let me give you a visual of this, okay? Fight or flight system. Fight or flight mode gets triggered when you are in a when you're in a situation where you're going to be betrayed, or you already have been betrayed. So within our interesting tapestry of who we are as humans, right? Because we're multifaceted. There's not one piece to us, two pieces, or three pieces. There's a variety of pieces. But we have what we call a central nervous system. And then we also have an autonomic nervous system, okay? I'm just going to break this down so it'll be easy to understand. So a central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord, okay? The autonomic nervous system is really those different elements of us that is very interconnected with our bloodstream and how things flow in our body, right? It has connections to bodily fluid. It really is I can't think of what it's called. It's our circulatory system. I'm going to put it that way. Okay. And really, we're talking about, regulating all the automatic pieces of our body. Okay. So I'm just going to put that here. Regulating automatic pieces of the body. Okay. Okay. Central nervous system breaks down into two systems. Okay. The central nervous system breaks down into the sympathetic nervous system. I'm just going to show you what this looks like to give you a visual for you visual learners out there. I'm a visual learner. So sympathetic nervous system is For those of you who have continued to come back to my live chats, you probably know what it is, but I'm going to throw it out there again. Central nervous system, brain, and spinal cord. Okay. That breaks down into two systems. Sympathetic nervous system is all of the areas of the body that gets triggered by that thing that screams danger. So if you have been betrayed, your body, your mind, your brain goes into fight or flight mode. Sympathetic nervous system gets kicked off. So we're talking about increased heart rate, blood pressure. Maybe you're crying, maybe you're trembling, maybe you have tremors, maybe you are feeling hot, maybe you are feeling faint, dizzy, your heart is hurting, excuse me, maybe you are feeling betrayed in a way that just really makes you feel less than, right? So, you know, who you are as a person may start to impact you. The psychology of who you are may start. So you may start having racing thoughts about yourself that's not positive, it's negative. And you may find yourself emotionally and psychologically shutting down. Okay. Then we have what's called the para, which means around. Okay. The parasympathetic nervous system. And this is the mode. This is the mode that we barely get into when we're in fight or flight mode. We really have to feel safe in order for the body to come off this high. So this is the sympathetic nervous system arousal here, and you're way up here and everything is triggering you and everything's making you sad, angry, impulsive. You know, you just kind of want to jump out of your skin kind of feeling, right? When you hit the parasympathetic mode, then your sympathetic nervous system kind of calms down, right? And then your parasympathetic system kind of becomes more prominent because now you're in a relaxed mode of being. So here's what this looks like. Oh, geez, I hope this is, look here, girl. I'm messing this up, aren't I, guys? So as you can see, the sympathetic nervous system is on the left. Parasympathetic nervous system is on the right. CNS is the central nervous system, which is the brain and spinal cord, right? And that's the system right over here is the system that you're in when you enter fight or flight mode. And it's like you kind of lose, hopefully my camera is back. Yeah, it's back. You kind of lose your ability to function because now your body is in fight or flight mode and your body and your mind is up here functioning and it's out of control. So betrayal actually triggers the central nervous system. It triggers the brain, triggers the central nervous system, triggers the fight or flight system. Isn't that interesting? Anything that the brain portrays as a threat, fight or flight gets kicked off. Another piece gets kicked off, and I'm going to continue on, Lori, because this came off of the hinges of your comment. The amygdala, it's that almond-sized round structure in the middle of the brain, and it is kind of sitting in the middle of a variety of other pieces of the brain that deals with emotions. So the amygdala, however, is this really primitive piece of the brain that doesn't have any rationalization, doesn't have an ability to look at the pros and the cons, to count the costs, none of that. The amygdala is very primitive. It is emotional, and it really searches the environment to determine if you are in danger. And if the amygdala determines that you're in danger, then your fight or flight mode is going to get kicked off, and it may stay on even when the threat is out of the way. And so that is really betrayal trauma, right? Betrayal trauma is your central nervous system is out of control. Your amygdala is sensing danger all around you. And so your body is constantly in this mode of fight or flight. Or you can also call it central nervous system dominance. I'll give you that one. Central nervous system dominance, right? What's dominating your central nervous system? Trauma. And it's causing this domino effect, right? So your system gets kicked off, your brain sees threat. Now your thoughts are racing. Your body is in this place of almost like freeze mode. You don't know what to do. And it can really cause some issues physiologically for you down the road. So, Lori, you're right. 100%. MS says, my family betrayed me by forging my signature on legal documents. I was shocked when I first found out. I've learned there's no justice sometimes. Oh, there's no justice sometimes. And I'm moving on without apologies. I choose who is in my life. Yeah, I totally understand you. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. If you can prove, MS, that they forged your signature and you have the proof, that's a call to the police. And I wouldn't hesitate to do that. I wouldn't hesitate to do that. I hate to say it. Miss Janine, hello. It's good to see you back in tonight's live chat. Miss Janine says, betrayal trauma was done to me more than once or more times than I could mention due to the embarrassment. The worst was my stepmom saying it was my fault that my dad was an alcoholic. My ex cheated always. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Miss Janine. Here's what research suggests, that if you have one betrayal, so betrayal from a parent, or you feel like you're responsible for the problems of your parent, then what happens in your adult life? Well, you may carry those negative feelings into adulthood, right? And then you begin to seek out that same, what do they say? Water seeks its own level. My grandmother used to say it all the time. Well, you kind of seek out relationships where there's betrayal involved. So if you've been abused as a child, your attachment may be thrown off. Your ability to spot the red signs of trauma or abuse may be kind of, rocky. And so you may begin to, as a child, as you grow up, you may begin to seek out those relationships. Excuse me, I'm stuttering here. To seek out those relationships that are also filled with betrayal and abuse, right? And hurt and harm. So it's not really shocking that you had that experience with your dad, and then you ended up in relationships where there was betrayal. There's a correlation between the two. Live Life, is so good to see you. Always love seeing you on here. I know you can't be on here all the time, but I'm so glad you continue to what is it? Boomerang back to me? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Always good to see you. Queen Moses Soul, hello and welcome. Welcome to the channel. It's good to have you. Queen Moses Soul says, this happened to me in reverse. My daughter's dad basically bullied me to keep my daughter at the school he works at. He was successful because I didn't know he was doing this. Wow. So it sounds like maybe he kind of betrayed you a little bit there. He kind of, stayed underneath the radar. That's awful. Lily Lane, hello and welcome, my friend. It's so good to see you. Lily Lane says, my father did this to my brother, verbally abused him, told him he wasn't wanted anymore repeatedly, left a gun accidentally for him to find. My brother is no longer here. That is awful. That is awful, my Lord. And I'm so very sorry for your loss. That's a horrible thing. And it would shock me if dad didn't feel guilty. It would kind of shock me. Mark Lee says, man, this one's for you, Miss Janine, so you don't feel alone here. Mark says, man, I attracted narcissists. My whole life was completely off balance. Yeah. Remember the research. If you've dealt with that a lot in your life, even as a child, it can lead you to living an adult life in very similar ways. Okay. Honest Living Journey asks a question. Tamara, does the mom end up hating the child in the long run too? Maybe. I mean, there's been some research that suggests that could actually be what's going on in those cases where, mom divorces, lets the child go over there, and guess what? Never returns for the child. There's no fight of custody anymore. There's no more visitation with the child on a weekly basis or regular basis. Yeah, I very much think so. And the research kind of backs that up, that once that situation is done over there and that child is over there, they may go and get into a relationship with another person and create a whole new life. And that child is over there wondering, where's mom? I've had at least 5 cases like that since 2020. And it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. I hate to see it. Matt Stew, hello and welcome. It's so good to have you in tonight's live chat. You're my last one because we're going to go back to the content. Matt Stew says, love the definition, Miss Hill. Yeah, so glad, so glad. Good. I throw those definitions at you in those terms because it gives you the language. You know what I mean? All right, let's get back into this, guys. What are the motivating factors for betrayal? What are the motivating factors? What causes somebody to want to betray? Well, number one, they are driven by self-interest. Research in psychology suggests that these kind of individuals, those who betray, often betray on the premise that they have the right to follow what their ideals are, what their dreams are, what their desires are, what they want in the moment. So self-interest, they are highly driven by that. Self-interest to be in a different relationship, self-interest to divorce, right? Self-interest to not have to have these responsibilities anymore. So what do? Instead of being a grown-up and being a stable adult and saying, you know what? This is not going to work for me. I'm sorry. I thought maybe, but I can't deal with you anymore. Aunt Susu, Uncle BB, or anybody else in your family, right? Or you may say to somebody that you're in a relationship with, or maybe you're a friend or a neighbor too, I kind of need my space, okay? That in and of itself can drive you to betray. Not necessarily in all cases, but research does suggest that self-interest drives betrayal, right? The other thing is dependency on the betrayal or the betrayer. I'm sorry, dependency on the betrayer. So sometimes you will get, especially in a family dynamic, you will get the person who is being relied upon betray the person who's relying on them. Does that make sense? So mom is going to betray her children. And there may be some psychological reason for that. Maybe she doesn't want to have to deal with her children anymore. So she's doing things secretly, right? And sneakily against her children, you know? Or if you're married to somebody like this, or you're in a relationship with somebody like this, they just go and betray you. They're tired of your dependency upon them. You know, I'm going to have that affair and that'll give me an out, an exit. I'm done with this relationship. I'm done with this family. Right? So sometimes it is dependency on the betrayer. Social deviance and disregard for the rights of others. I can do what I want to do. That takes me to my next one. Entitlement and opportunism. It's, I can do what I want to do because that's who I am. I was counseling a family 4 years ago that was like this, and it was the ugliest family. The cousins were literally devils walking upon the earth. Okay. I couldn't swallow their arrogance and their attitude and their disposition and their mannerisms, and their behaviors were just awful. And, you know, they were selfish and self-centered, and they would come to therapy sometimes with a ton of food. You know, I don't mind people coming to my office eating. Yes, if you feel comfortable, that helps give you, you know, the strength to wait on your turn or whatever, do it. You know, as long as you are respectful and you're not eating a bunch of food in front of other people that you have not offered that food to, or, you know, that has food. And, you know, I like when I see kids come in with their McDonald's French fries and they're sitting and talking to me about dad and mom's argument the other day, you know. But there was something about these cousins that just was like nails on a chalkboard. And they came into the front door and sat down. They were waiting on me. Next thing I know, mom comes in with 2 boxes of pizzas, okay? And opens the boxes on the waiting room table, moved all the pamphlets and the business cards that I had on my table. You know, I had an intern at the time and she had her business information. I had a person training with me. They had their business information on the table in the waiting room. She just moved it all over to the side, just moved it over, put 2 boxes of pizza on the table, opened the boxes of pizza, didn't offer anyone in the waiting room any, right? Didn't ask if it was okay if they brought their dinner to therapy. Sat down and waited until I was done with my session before then. to ask me, is it okay if we have this here? I told them, I'm going to let that be it for now, but I'm not going to permit this after today's session. And I remember one of the cousins saying to me, okay, I promise we won't do this again. I said, thank you, because it's rather disruptive and it's rude. They finally came back to the session and engaged with my client. It was the cousins and then my client. And she was sitting and trying to explain how hurt she was, how, they've gone against her and she doesn't know why, how they don't invite her to parties and birthdays and funerals, and the list goes on. So they're just talking and engaging. And what I learned while watching them talk and communicate is that her cousins were very entitled, very cliquish. They had a social disregard for who she was as a person. They were socially deviant and very much ostracizing her out of the family, pushing her to the outskirts of the family. And they had absolutely no guilt, no shame. They didn't have guilt and shame as to how they came into my office, much less dealing with their cousin. I'm a stranger and they're disrespecting me, much less their cousin, right? And so they had kind of like this attitude of, I've never been corrected in my life. And so therefore, everything belongs to me and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I don't care who doesn't like it. I've never been told no. I've never been corrected and I am entitled. And so that's the disposition of her family members. And sadly, she ended up walking away from them because they were just that rude and that entitled. Very rude and entitled with me, and very rude and entitled with her as well. Okay. Also, lack of integrity. Lack of integrity. This is what drives betrayal. Lack of integrity. I don't respect myself, my morals, my boundaries. I don't respect anybody else's boundaries, religion, political beliefs. I don't respect any of it. So there's a lack of integrity there. And let me also add in here too, there's a lot of unmet psychological and emotional needs with these people. And so they betray because of that. They go and have an affair with somebody because they have emotional and psychological needs that are unmet. So they go over there and they find that person who can temporarily meet those needs, temporarily, because once their relationship gets found out, then there's going to be even bigger problems. But in that moment, in the time that they are together, they feel like their voids are being filled, right? So their unmet needs are being cared for. And so that can often lead to betrayal, right? And I did mention lack of integrity, but let me go back to something for a second. Lack of integrity can also be, I've betrayed you, and I've betrayed you, but I don't feel like I need to apologize. That is betrayal a second time, right? First time betrayal, maybe I've had an affair on you, or I've disregarded you, or I've lied on you. I've talked to people about you so they can turn against you. Whatever the first betrayal was, a second betrayal could be, I don't see anything wrong with what I did. I don't see any reason why I have to apologize to you. Betrayal number 2. You've already hurt me. Now you're hurting me again by not receiving the responsibility of your behavior or being accountable. We'll put it that way. So that's oftentimes a second betrayal. Now, let me also give you briefly, before we get into the impact and then I go back to the chat box, but let me also give you some other ideas. Research in psychology highlights something known as the Judas syndrome. You ready for this? Okay, let me put this in the chat box. It's called Judas syndrome. Okay. Can you imagine what that is? The reference for this is Matthew chapter 26, and I think it's 47:50. That's in the King James Bible. King James Bible, or the Christian Bible, because you can also get it in a variety of other forms of the Christian Bible. Judas syndrome. So Judas in the Bible, if you look it up online, you want to go to Matthew 26 verses 47 to 50. I think that's it. And that's where Judas betrayed Jesus in the scriptures, right? So the story goes that Jesus kind of predicted that Judas would betray him and would betray him with a kiss, right? So Judas kissed Jesus on the cheek. That was supposed to be some kind of reverence, some kind of confirming of their bond, of their relationship. And yet Judas knew that he was going to eventually betray Jesus. And Jesus also knew it, right? For those of you who know this story. So now there's this concept known as Judas syndrome. And that's when a person basically, I'll put it this way, they kind of act against their moral compass. They know what they're not supposed to do, but they're going to do it anyway because of their self-interest. So we call it Judas syndrome. You have Judas syndrome. You know what you should be doing. You know what you should not be doing. You know that you're acting against your moral compass, and yet you continue to do it. And so you're doing this because it interests you. It's a self-interest. So Judas syndrome. There's also the Milgram experiments. That is another thing. Let me put this in here. The Milgram, did I say that right? Yeah, Milgram experiments. Sorry, guys. Thought I saw something crawling around over there. Experiments. Okay. This is basically a look at how morals, how do I want to put this? How we can obey authority with the right. Sorry, guys. I'm so slow. With the right amount of authority. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay. So Milgram experiments, it looked at how we can obey authority, even when we know on the inside it's wrong. But because that person is in a position of authority, we go along with them. Or because we're repeatedly told nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong, we will oftentimes step back and say, okay, I'm told not to worry. That's a police officer over there, so I believe everything he says. Or that's a doctor over there, I believe everything he says or she says, right? And so Milgram experiments is really another example of betrayal. I will betray you in favor of this authority figure over here and what they're telling me. I will betray you based on the fact that somebody with a badge on, somebody who is standing there in a uniform, somebody that's standing there in scrubs at a hospital is telling me to believe this. I will believe it, right? It's a form of betrayal. I'll believe whatever I need to believe because it's coming from this particular person that I have told that I can trust, right? Dark triad traits. That's another motivational factor for betrayal. Dark triad traits means Machiavellianism. So the person kind of gets this psychological stimulation from betraying people, right? They like to see how other people are going to react to pain, to hurt, to betrayal. It makes them happy. It's stimulating. You know, why not see how many people I can hurt in one day? That Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. Those are the 3 areas of study under the dark triad traits. There's also contextual factors that can contribute to betrayal. So it's the particular situation in which you were in, you know? Maybe that person is a pretty good person overall, but in a relationship with you, there were tons of betrayal. So contextual factors, like what's happening in this particular situation. And then there's revenge. People sometimes betray for revenge, right? Stalkers, people who are attitudinal and angry and have anger management issues, you know, revenge. That's the only way that they're going to be able to get you back for something they feel that you have done to them. So they may engage in betrayal as a form of revenge, get you to trust them, get you to fall in love with them, get you to do A, B, and C. But it really is, at the end of the day, it's a betrayal, right? So what are we supposed to do with these kind of people? You know, it's a really hard call, isn't it, guys? Because sometimes you have to sit in a seat right next to a coworker who you know is a liar, who you know can betray you, who you know has betrayed other people in the past. You've been told about it. You've seen it. How are you supposed to live through a family dynamic where there's tons of betrayal? It's a really hard thing to deal with, right, guys? In tomorrow's live chat, which is going to be on what it's like to be alone in your family, you have family all around you, and yet you feel so all alone. Or you decide to walk away, and now you are a family member of one. How does that impact you? So tomorrow, come join me, because we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about kind of revenge a little bit closer, and how do you deal with, a family member who has impacted you negatively. And yet you just want to run away. You want to get away from them. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. But this is $1 million question, and research doesn't have any answers for this. But here's what I want to jump into before I go back to the chat box: the reality of the impact on you. What happens when you have been betrayed over and over and over? Well, one form of betrayal is betrayal trauma. The only person I know on YouTube, I was going to say Yoo-hoo, can you believe that? On YouTube that talks about betrayal trauma is Dr. Ramani. I had to think of her name for a second. Dr. Ramani, she talks a whole lot about trauma that has resulted from betrayal or betrayal trauma. I would go check her out. She's the expert in that area, not me. See what she says on that topic if you haven't already. But betrayal can really lead to betrayal trauma. It can also lead to impaired emotion regulation. So this is the impact of betrayal trauma that we're talking about here. Impaired emotion regulation. It's hard to regulate your emotions when you constantly feel like you're being betrayed. If you were betrayed as a child, if you were betrayed as an adult, and it kind of stuck with you, it can be really hard for you to move from there to the future. So you may find yourself struggling with your thoughts and your feelings when it comes to betrayal. You may have what we call like a morbid preoccupation with betrayal. A morbid preoccupation. I'm going to put that in here. It's a morbid preoccupation with betrayal. It's a shame I have to say it out loud nor to spell it. Morbid preoccupation with betrayal. Okay. Really what that means is that you are constantly engulfed in the betrayal that has happened to you. You can't shake it off. You can't get rid of it. Why? Because it's constantly in your mind, constantly affecting your heart. Now it's starting to affect your soul, because now you feel like you are struggling with ailments all the time. You're tired and you're moody and your body hurts and you've got arthritis and your nerves are all tensed up. Why? Because there's been a morbid preoccupation with betrayal. The other piece of this is you may have a very much a shattered sense of safety. A shattered sense of safety. Think about it as, here's this glass mirror that's in front of me, right? You take your strongest boot and step on that glass, right? What's going to happen? There's going to be different pieces shattered all over the place, right? That's you. That's your sense of safety. It's shattered. So you may find yourself kind of stuck in that, right? There's something we also call mental contamination. Mental contamination. And really, this is a theory around OCD, but it can also be a theory that can relate to you in the sense that that person that has betrayed you, they have entered your world, who they are, how they have behaved, in addition to everything else they bring with them, has literally contaminated your mind. And so now you're constantly in an obsessive way thinking about them and what they did and why they did it and when they did it and who they did it with. It's constant, like a wheel in your mind, right? And so because of that, it contaminates your mind. And in very much the same way as individuals with OCD feel contaminated. It's like you have to keep washing your hands over and over and over and over, right? Or you have to make sure your drawers are pushed in at the same time, because if you do one drawer and not the other, it's going to feel weird. So you got to push the drawers in together at the same time. Betrayal stirs all that. There's been some potential correlations between the two, OCD and betrayal. Betrayal triggers OCD. And it also triggers that obsessive nature of OCD, right? You may exacerbate your own anxiety. You already have anxiety. you know, and now you are terrified or you're hurt or you're feeling negatively about the betrayal. And so now you've triggered your social anxiety, you've triggered your agoraphobia, you have, kind of triggered your, I'm trying to think of another form of anxiety, your separation anxiety. We'll go with that. Betrayal can trigger anxiety. It is what it is, and the research is continual. But right now, there's a correlation between OCD and betrayal, anxiety and betrayal. It happens a lot. You may struggle to recognize betrayal after a certain point in time. You could be betrayed so many times that it becomes normal. Betrayed so many times that it becomes normal. And when it becomes normal, what does that mean, guys? You begin to kind of digest it and internalize it in a way where it may be really hard to see that betrayal is right in the front of your face, right? You may struggle with unmet expectations of other people because your expectations are way too high. Why do we sometimes set our expectations way up here? Doesn't necessarily mean that we are narcissistic, but here's what it could mean. It means that my expectations are way up here for the simple purpose of protecting myself. Why? Because I know nobody can meet that expectation. And if you can't meet this expectation, I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to marry you. I don't have to be in a relationship with you. I don't have to necessarily work with you. I don't have to invite you to my parties. Nothing. I'm going to be safe. I have created this bubble around me where nobody can get in because my expectations are way up here. I think this is something my mother dealt with as a young girl. Her expectations were so high that people just kind of came to that level and fell out of her life. They came to this level and fell out of her life again. And it kind of shielded her a little bit because then she didn't have to adjust. She didn't have to be betrayed. She didn't have to worry about somebody not telling her the truth or being honest, So she set the bar way up here in a genius way because nobody can reach her expectation. Everybody kind of fails, It's a sad reality. I think she's still kind of like that, but not as bad as she was when she was younger. You may also struggle with denial. You may want to remain unaware of what you know. You may want to remain unaware of the betrayal that has traumatized you on the inside, right? That is strictly denial. I am not going to make room for this in my mind, in my heart, and in my life. And so these things, guys, can keep you in this loop of betrayal. And not working on these things as well can continue to perpetuate the betrayal, can continue to perpetuate this experience of betrayal throughout the generations, as we said, right? This is a lot, guys, right? Quick overview with you, like I'm starting to do, is premeditated malice. What is betrayal? Premeditated malice. It's a disregard for the moral principles of others. I don't care that you're a Christian. I don't care that you believe in that. I don't care that you believe in that. I'm still going to betray you. And you better forgive me because I'm not going to beg you for forgiveness. Right? A lot of people who betray are arrogant. They don't feel like there's any kind of consequences, right? Betrayal leaves you feeling what? Defenseless vulnerability. Defenseless vulnerability. Betrayal is being harmed intentionally by certain acts or omissions, right? The other piece of this is the betrayer may feel like the victim themselves. And so that leads to revenge. That leads to, being driven by their self-interests. That leads to entitlement, right? And then social deviance and disregard for the rights of others. Dependency is created by the betrayer. And it can kind of leave you feeling harmed and targeted. And of course, all the research we talked about tonight, the Milgram experiments, the Judas syndrome, the dark triad traits, the contextual factors, all of that adds to the puzzle, right? And then, unfortunately, you're going to get hit by the consequences of that betrayal. And you're going to get hit pretty hard. Why? Because you're going to experience impaired emotion regulation. You won't be able to regulate your emotions. You're going to be preoccupied with thoughts of betrayal. Why this happened? Why that happened? When did that start? Why didn't this happen then, right? In addition to that, you're going to feel shattered. You know, your heart can be shattered by betrayal. You're going to have mental contamination where you can't really think or see clear. There's a lot of exacerbation of anxiety and depression that you may already have, right? You may set your expectations really, really high because you don't want to be hurt anymore. And denial keeps you protected from the danger. So this is the brief overview of what we talked about tonight, guys. This is a lot, right? Come join me tomorrow. All right, let's go to the chat box. I want to engage you guys just a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and sign off. Bree, want to thank you once again for gifting people with memberships on the live chat tonight. I love you so much for that. Thank you, as I always say. I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you, Axe to Edge. I'm going to star your comment, highlighting what I'm saying. I love it. Yeah, Fairy Girl, thank you so much for gifting people with a membership this month. So grateful for you as well. Totally love you. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm literally getting tired. Can you guys see my eyes closing? I'm so tired. I need to sign off and like take a quick nap. You know what, guys? Let me give us a mental break for a second. I'll share this with you since we're done with the content. I am pushing 40, okay? And I'm tired. I'm tired. My profession is tiring. If I'm not in the office seeing clients, okay, which I think I see between 35 to 45 clients a week. It really just depends on how my days are going. If I don't cancel or they don't cancel or, whatever, plus or minus 35 to 40 clients a week, okay? If you can imagine, then it's really tiring because you have to do back to back sessions, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I'm beat. Age, okay, is starting to get to me. Talking to children and having adolescents in my office every week, every day is tiring. I love them so much. I really do. But they're kids. And so they tire me out. So last night, I'm trying to help my mom get situated. She's very independent now, guys. Thank you so much for your prayers about her stroke when she first had it back in February. You guys were so sweet to me. And I showed my mom all the comments and she was just overjoyed. So thank you for that if I haven't thanked you yet. But I'm trying to help her last night, okay? And I thought I had it. You know how you just believe, I got this. I got this. I'm going to be able to survive because I'm pretty good. I sat down after I helped my mom get all situated. I sat down and I literally opened up a book that I was going to read. And can you believe this? I was asleep. I'm like, oh my God. So I sat down, I opened my book, and somehow I must have closed my eyes and I was asleep and I didn't wake up until the next day. I mean, somebody tell me I'm not alone. And I sat up, I was in the living room and I sat up and I looked around and I said, okay, now either I fell asleep last night because I was more tired than I thought and I'm getting older, or I fell asleep last night because I put too much chamomile in my tea. I don't know which one it is, but I woke up the next day. I could hear the birds tweeting away and I thought, oh my God, is this what it's going to be like to get old? The Good Glow. Yeah. Did I say hello to you? I feel like I didn't. Hello, The Good Glow. Welcome back. So good to have you. Thank you for the positivity and you're welcome. And thank you so much for that. I couldn't do it without you guys, to be very honest. So thank you. Okay, let's keep moving. All right. Joe Martinez. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Welcome back. Okay. Yeah, Matt Stu says, I've never even really considered this view. Yeah, it's so true though. Yeah. I think the point in time where you made this comment, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like the joy of this channel. You're going to see things from a different angle because I'm not coming at you as most people would assume I should, right? I'm kind of coming at you from different angles of the situation. So I'm showing you guys different pieces of a big picture, So you're gonna, Matt Stu, you're gonna see different angles and views in my live chats for sure, if you haven't already. Okay, let me keep moving. Bree 420 says, after divorced, abusive husband was homeless for 8 years because I already gone through so much. Catastrophic betrayal. Yeah, absolutely. Catastrophic betrayal. It's a violation, right? You guys remember what it is? It's demolishing a sense of safety within you. Catastrophic betrayal. It is a severe violation of trust because you depend on that other person. So Brie is saying that's exactly what I've dealt with. Fairy Girl says, feeling safe, priceless. Very much agree. Give it a think. Thank you so much for that kind comment. I appreciate you. Thank you. Great. Lulu Lane says the chat box terms help. Good to know. I'll keep doing it. Okay, let me keep moving, guys. A and B, so glad this is helpful. That's so good to hear. Okay, Matt Stew has a wonderful question. He says, is betrayal a character trait of evil? 1 second, guys. I need 1 sec. Yes. Excuse me. Yes. Betrayal can be seen as a character trait of evil. Yes, it can. Yeah. But again, it can go the opposite way as well. Is evil a trait of betrayal? Right? What about those people who betray, but they're not evil? What about those people who betray because they saw no other way to get out? Sometimes you have to lend a little bit of compassion, right, to what the human heart and mind is going through. So I would say we have to be careful with that, Matt Stu, but I do believe it. I do believe it within reason. Yeah. And Pulsar says, I didn't know there was a such thing as catastrophic betrayal. Excuse me. Yes, there is a such thing as catastrophic betrayal. Yeah, that's why we do these live chats, guys. This is information that you wouldn't get otherwise. You know what I mean? So whenever I'm doing research or whenever I'm trying to like refreshen my understanding of a topic, I go after the terms and I share them and I explain them and I break them down, because isn't it interesting that sometimes we just need the language? You know, my cardiologist, who's been dealing with my cardiac symptoms, I get cardiac spasms, if you will. And when they first started up a little over a year ago, my cardiologist threw some terms at me about my condition. And I remember saying to him, I don't understand what's happening because I'm so healthy. Like, you know, I work out all, you know, many different hours of the day, you know, during the week, I eat healthy, the list goes on. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And he took and threw no, I'm just kidding. Not literally, but he threw some terms at me and it was like a light bulb went off. And I remember thinking, oh, so that's what that is, you know? And so sometimes you just need that professional, right? To just be like, here's the terminology, here's what's happening. And it can make you feel so calmed, right? And validated, because now you have the language to explain what you've been thinking and feeling for so long, you know? So I've been there too. I totally get it. So I'm going to continue to throw those terms at you guys. MS says, and then we're going to wrap up in literally 10 minutes. MS says, or a little less than 10 minutes. MS says, what I understand about the actions of my family members is they can turn other people against me and other family members against me, but they can't turn God against me or any of us. Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful statement. Isn't it ugly when family members turn people against you? And the sad part about that is some family members are so cliquish and so groupie, like, you know, like there's a groupie syndrome going on. Excuse me. They are so cliquish that they kind of look at each other and say, you know what? I like us. And I like the way we talk. I like the way we think. I like the way we hang out. I love this part of my family. And so why would I take the time to question what you're telling me about that family member over there? Because I don't see you as being the problem. I also like you and I favor you. So therefore, you over there are going to have to go way over there, because I believe this family member and I know them better and I care to know them better than you. So what happens in that dynamic, MS, is you're that one who is way over there, right? Because the clique of family members are over here. So then where does that leave you? That leaves you all alone over there by yourself, feeling ostracized. And I see this a lot in the therapy room. All I have to do is wait for clients to sit down. That's all I have to do. And it's going to tell me about you. If I have about 4 family members coming to therapy, okay, it's a family session. I'll say, sit wherever you want to sit. Wherever you want to sit is available to you. Okay. I will oftentimes see the kids sitting on their parents' lap, sitting near their parents, sitting under their parent, whatever. And that shows me they feel bonded to the parent, or they're a little anxious. Or I will see dad sit over there in the corner of the office while mom is on the couch with the kids. And so dad's kind of removing himself. He's right back there. So sometimes you can determine the state of a family dynamic just by looking at who is close, who is like this. You know what I mean? And so the clique is over here holding on to each other. Excuse me. Dry spot again, while you're over there, right? While you're over there all alone. Give me 1 second, guys. Excuse me. I hate when that happens. But it's a very ugly thing, right, MS? And it's painful too, because you may not be able to change the mind of the family members who is in that clique. All you can do is just exist, right? And find another family somewhere else. Sometimes that is also interesting, or something that you have to do. Okay. Axe to Edge says, the betrayal didn't break my heart. It's like it was the most normal thing, excuse me, to expect, maybe because it was happening for so long. Yeah, absolutely. You kind of become conditioned. You become conditioned. We call it conditioning. You're being conditioned by an action that is perpetual, right? All right, we're going to wrap up in literally 5 minutes. I want to make sure that I get at least some of you tonight. I'm so sorry I can never get to all of you, but know that I hear you and see you, okay? Joe Martinez says, I'm out so deep. Sorry, I will be back. Bad thoughts of stuff. Yeah, I totally get it. Totally get it. If it's triggering, I'm going to put a warning just for people who may need that kind of warning. I'm going to put that on as soon as we sign off. You know what you need to do, Joe. It's you. You know you best. Christina Smith says, when people see you as being the strong one, evildoers really get their jollies in causing you hurt and turmoil in your life. I agree with that. Not always, but yes. You know what I mean? It does happen. Not in all cases. I very much agree with that. That's why sometimes it's best to, if you can, keep your life as private as you can. I go through that myself. Some people will run up to me in a grocery store because they've seen me on YouTube, or they've seen me somewhere else at a conference, and then they'll see me and they'll run up to me and they'll ask me how I'm doing. They'll ask me about my mom. I think it's so sweet and so caring. But then sometimes they will trail off and they'll ask me something way more personal. And I will have to then put up the boundary and say, I really like you and I embrace you and thank you so much for this and thank you so much for that, but I really don't need to tell you my personal secret life because that is reserved for me. You know what I mean? And so Christina Smith, I have found safety over the years in letting people in, right? Close enough, but then also keeping my space for myself. I'm not going to tell you about what's going on in my family 24/7. I'm not going to tell you how I slept last night. I'm not going to tell you know what I mean? I'm not going to tell you if I'm married or not necessarily. That really isn't your business unless you're interested in me or whatever. So, you can kind of have that space that is reserved for you so that you don't have those family members or just strangers, right, manipulating your privacy and your space. Does that make sense, Christina Smith? Yeah. And sometimes it may be good to kind of wear the mask, like you're not bothering me. You're not impacting me at all. I know you want to see me hurt, but it's not quite working, There's some psychology to that too. Fairy Girl says, I'm going to put Fairy Girl up here so you guys can see realistic expectations. That is utopia. Radical acceptance, that is even more important. I very much agree with that. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. Yeah. Matt Stu says shocks your very identity. 100%. Oh, yeah. You lose who you are. Laura Fit. Hello, my friend. It's so good to see you. Welcome back. Okay, let's keep moving because I'm literally miles and miles and miles behind you guys. Lori quotes what I stated earlier on defenseless vulnerability. Yeah. Lori says there are finally words to what I've been experiencing multiple times in my life. Wow. Yeah. Defenseless vulnerability. 100%. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. The Good Glow says, I still remember my reaction when I was betrayed by my mother. I sat on the bed only to find myself on my knees crying until I couldn't anymore. That's so sad. Oh my God. That's so sad. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. My Lord. That's awful. Live Life says, I feel like betrayal is demonic and dangerous. Yeah, I don't blame you. Live Life goes on, excuse me, to say, I was betrayed by a frenemy in the middle of helping them. I was so confused and traumatized for a couple of years. It is the rotten fruit of deep envy. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Mm-hmm. Isn't it interesting though? And I think you were listening in tonight, Live Life. Isn't it interesting that the betrayer can sometimes also say they feel betrayed? So if you have betrayed someone, then in some interesting way, your twisted, skewed view of reality says that you have actually betrayed me. I haven't betrayed you. You betrayed me. You know, it is such a complex situation because let's say, for example, this quote unquote frenemy may have felt you betrayed her in some way. Wouldn't that mess you up? And sometimes it does, right? Sometimes I hear things in sessions, in my past, as I was growing up in the field, I was a baby as a therapist, but as I'm growing up, throughout the field, I remember hearing different situations in my sessions with people where, they just, the way they think, and sometimes you kind of have to sit there and ask yourself, is this happening? Like, what is this? Is this a defense mechanism? Is this some kind of like psychological maneuver here? What is happening? Because, some people are just that desperate to be a victim that they will say, I didn't betray you, you betrayed me, and so therefore I betrayed you. Shauna Thompson, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Shauna Thompson says, this has happened to me from my mom and brother. Life is so short. Yes, it is. I just don't understand why family or anyone would do this to someone else. Agree. There's really no need to do this. I agree. My biggest, how do I want to put this? My biggest issue that I have with a person, and this is why I don't do marital counseling or relationship counseling or anything. I can't stand infidelity. I think it is the worst thing that you can do. If you ask for forgiveness, if you make it better, if you fix it, wonderful. But I have such a hard time with infidelity. Part of that is because my grandfather had a extramarital affair on my grandmother, and it really just tore my mother and my uncle, who just passed away. It tore their lives apart. My uncle never could get that out of his mind, and he felt a sense of abandonment from our his dad, my grandfather, because of that. And it really messed my mom up. My mom just couldn't find stability in her romantic relationships or her life because of the way my grandfather had an affair with my grandmother's guest to their home. Imagine that. So I have this big thing on the inside that says I cannot stand infidelity. And so I'm with you, Shauna Thompson. My whole inner man says, every time I hear about infidelity, my inner man says, there's really no need to have an affair, divorce, walk away, something. Why does it have to be? I am taking their trust of me and I'm putting it over here and I'm stomping on it because this betrayal is going to really hurt them. You know what I mean? So I'm with you. That's my question too. Is there a need to do this? Most of the time, no. Okay. Well, this is going to be hard for me. Hayati psychology. Hopefully, I said that correctly. Welcome to the channel. Please correct me on your screen name. It's good to have you. Welcome. You say yes, the shocking heartlessness. Yeah. Usually a psychopath. If it's a shocking heartlessness, you're probably dealing with a psychopath. Amy999 says, too many games, Tam. Fed up. Yeah, I understand. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Nope. Impulser says, betrayal is why I have become a very private person. Good for you. That's a smart move. I don't say anything to anyone. So when I get the opportunity to get away from my family, I'm not going to say anything to anyone. I understand. It's sad it has to go that way, right? And I don't want to condone that, because it can sometimes be very isolative and harmful, because it can boomerang. Nobody really knows what's happening to you. And so then you don't have anybody to rescue to if you need it. At the same time, I totally get what you're saying. And it makes a lot of sense. You just got to balance that a little bit, Impulser. So, Lori, that's so sweet of you. Thank you so much for this comment. I'm going to highlight it. I want to get a couple more comments in, guys, and then we're going to go. I want to spend some time with my mom. This is my uncle will be buried this week. Oh, my goodness. He's going to be buried on Sunday. And of course, my mom, trying to still recover from her stroke, she couldn't go. But I still sense like a little bit of this. They weren't very close because there was a lot of betrayal between the two of them. My mom did not, she did not actively engage in any kind of betrayal to him, but she did feel betrayed by him. And this has been a sibling rivalry for so many years between the two of them. Now he has passed away, and so he is to be buried on Sunday. And I do want to spend some time with my mom, just kind of watching her. And last night I had her laughing. We were all talking, my brother and I were talking to her. So I do want to go in just a little bit just to be with her. But then I also want to work on the content for tomorrow, because tomorrow you're going to want to know what's happening. And you're going to want to be a part of that live chat. Lori, thank you so much for that. I think you're so, so sweet. And I really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe one day I'll talk about their sibling rivalry. It has been a thing for so many years. It's interesting. Nobody in my extended family has gotten along with their siblings. Can you believe that? Nobody in our extended family has gotten along with their siblings. Yeah. All right. Let's keep moving, guys. 1 to 2 last comments, and we're gonna go. Lisa Fowler, hello and welcome. It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in such a long time. It feels like it's been maybe a couple months, maybe a year. It's so good to see you. Welcome back. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for that. All right, let's keep moving. Trying to make sure I get everyone. Petite sophisticate. Petite sophisticate. Yeah. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you. I don't know if I said hello to you, but I'm always glad to see you. Ingrid Louise Ralston. I probably messed that up. I'm sorry. Hello and welcome. Good to have you, and welcome to the channel. Good to see you. All right, let's keep moving, guys. 2 more comments and we're going to go ahead. That's so sweet. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up in just a little bit. Ingrid says, hello, friends. Better late than never. I'm so grateful for the safe space. That is so wonderful. Love that. Love that. Okay. 2 more comments, I promise. We're gonna wrap up. Craig Williams, hello and welcome, my friend. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Hope you're doing okay. Shauna Thompson says, this is a question. Hi, Tamara. Please, could you do a video on how to become a secure attachment style? I think family betrayal made me avoidant, but I'd like to work on myself to fix it. I'm going to highlight your comment. I will put it on the list. So I can talk about attachment style. I can talk about betrayal trauma. I can also talk about the various pieces of attachment style. However, There's one reason why we cannot talk about how to become a secure style of attachment. You want to know why? Once your attachment style is set in motion, it is set in motion, and it is not going to go anywhere. But here's what you can do. You can learn over time tools, techniques. You can even curtail and mold some of your behaviors to kind of reflect the new person that you want to be. So it's not like you can't change. You can't change your attachment style, but you can add to it and try to mold it over time into a better attachment style that's less problematic. You know what I mean? So I can divvy that up, and definitely do a video on that. I'm gonna put it on the list for sure. For sure. Discern and stand firm. I love that. Hello and welcome to the channel. It's so good to have you. Discern and stand firm says, hello, Miss Tamara. Yes, it's moral disengagement. And I left immediately with no contact and didn't try to defend myself to anyone regarding my marriage after he was smearing my name. Absolutely. You don't have to defend him at all. Nope. No. Force of Living. Hello and welcome. It's always good to see you in the chat box. Jessica J, I love when you point this out. I love it because you're watching, and I love that. Jessica J says, I'm seeing so many more new people in here tonight. Welcome to the healing. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Jessica J. We need to make you that person that we greet at Walmart. You know what I mean? Jessica J, I would be so happy to see you at Walmart. Greet me. I really would. I went into Walmart last week and some guy was there and I says, hi, how are you? And I was reaching to get a cart and he just kind of looked at me like, don't talk to me. And I thought, okay, all right, I'm officially at Walmart. You know what I mean? I hate Walmart, but you need to be one of those people, Jessica J. You welcome people so kindly. So, all right, guys. Should we wrap up? I think we should. Let's end on Jessica J. I see some of the comments you guys are giving me tonight. Let me just say thank you so much for your love and compassion and support and making the channel a wonderful place to be for the new people, for those who are returning viewers. Thank you so much for that. If I missed you, if I didn't get a chance to get to you, know that I see you. I go back and I go through your chat box and I see the conversation like I've been in the chat box. Does that make sense, guys? And so I'm looking at that. I'm watching. I'm taking notes. I will make sure to add some new topics to my list, the ones that you've requested tonight. And come join me tomorrow. We're going to talk about what it's like to be alone in your family and the research and science behind that. So have a wonderful Friday. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night, guys.